We'll stand with our friends and partners, and we'll confront the aggression that threatens us all. I want to make a deal with Iran. I want to do something if it's possible. But for that to happen, it must stop sponsoring terror, halt its bloody proxy wars, and permanently and verifiably cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons.
So that comment right there is one of many headlines from day 3 of President Trump's overseas trip. He's now in Qatar for the second stop on his tour, pushing Iran again for a nuclear deal and announcing what is a major surprise policy shift in the Mideast. So the plates are spinning. Good morning, everybody. On this Wednesday, I'm Bill Hemmer, live here in New York. Hello.
Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. Yes, this trip rolls along. He packs a lot into a day, that's for sure. President Trump announcing the U.S. will lift sanctions on Syria. The penalties have been in place for more than 4 decades since the U.S. deemed the country a state sponsor of terrorism. That was back in 1979.
So President Trump met with Syria's new president, who flew to Saudi Arabia earlier today. And what was a major shift and a surprise that was announced just yesterday, okay? That leader led the effort to overthrow Assad. That leader used to be affiliated and connected directly with al-Qaeda in the Middle East. Gulf leaders now see him as a valuable counter to Iran. I want to go to Lucas Tomlinson for the latest reporting. He's in Qatar for the headlines as of this hour, we say. Lucas, hello.
Well, good afternoon, Bill. President Trump just arrived here in the state of Qatar after receiving a fighter escort from Qatari F-15s. You remember when Air Force One was on approach in Riyadh, he also received a fighter escort from the Saudis, the Qataris not being outdone. Now, before leaving Riyadh, you mentioned the big news, President Trump meeting with Syria's new president. He also met with Persian Gulf allies.
We are currently exploring normalizing relations with Syria's new government, as you know, beginning with my meeting with President Ahmed al-Shara. I am also ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria to give them a fresh start. It gives them a chance for greatness. The sanctions were really crippling, very powerful.
Now, after arriving here in Doha, President Trump was greeted by the emir, and then Trump's armored car, the Beast, was given an escort from this camel contingent. Remember, yesterday the Saudis rolled out those white Arabian stallions. And before leaving Saudi Arabia, President Trump met with the president of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara. As we mentioned yesterday, Trump received a standing ovation from the Saudi crown prince in a room full of dignitaries when Trump said he's removing sanctions on Syria. Sanctions, Dana, you mentioned, have been in place for 4 decades, but that's when the Assad family ruled Syria. Now Assad is gone, and this new Sunni leader in Syria, backed by Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince, who just 6 months ago had a $10 million bounty on his head as the leader of the Nusra Front in Syria, an al-Qaeda affiliate, now runs the country. And also, according to his CV, Dana Shara was detained by U.S. forces when he was a member of ISIS and al-Qaeda. But as Syria's new leader, Shara wants American cash and investment in his country and closer ties with the United States. He's spoken about joining the Abraham Accords, recognizing Israel, building Trump Tower in Damascus, and U.S. officials, most importantly, say they want to keep Iran out of the country and perhaps kick the Russians out. This is realpolitik. Under Assad, Iranian forces used to bring in weapons to Hezbollah, funneling weapons into Lebanon. The Trump administration wants to cut off this rat line, the Shia crescent that stems from Tehran to Beirut. And that's one of the reasons President Trump has shown up here in Doha when he meets with leaders here. He also wants to discuss ending the war in Gaza, freeing more hostages. Of course, Qatar is the largest foreign donor to American universities in the United States. It's also home to the largest U.S. military base here in the Middle East. Bill?
Okay, Lucas, thanks. We're watching the room and we're watching the headlines, so don't go far, okay? Thank you for that, leading our coverage there in the Middle East.
And Kellyanne Conway joins us. We're fortunate to have you this morning. Thanks for being here. Politico had this headline and sentence that American business titans greet Trump in Saudi Arabia. It was an unusually large and unusually VIP cadre of guests for a presidential foreign trip, the latest instance in which the American elite, once reproachful of Trump, has swiftly moved to impress him. But also, I think another thing happening here, Kellyanne, there's a lot of things happening. We'll talk about all of them. But what the president is trying to do is forge stronger economic ties, because stronger economic ties tends to make diplomacy easier in the world. And your thoughts, since you know him well, on how he set that up in his first term and can take advantage of it in the second?
Well, there's no question, Dana and Bill. Thank you for having me this morning. When President Trump started his remarks yesterday in Riyadh, he reflected on what he had said 8 years ago. He said, 8 years ago this month, I came here. Here's what I said. I loved his remarks. I thought they were some of the strongest passages I've heard from him in his presidency. Why? Because he basically said, look, we're not going to look past the fact that Iran is a state sponsor of terror. We're not going to look past what Hamas has done, obviously. But he wants to use this time for economic investment in the U.S., but also for personal diplomacy. Iran, Syria, Lebanon, he mentioned yesterday, obviously fanning out his team to go to Turkey, to go to Istanbul, to try to get Putin and Zelensky there to bring peace to Ukraine, after all, a just and peaceful result. And also Israel. It's only Wednesday, friends. It's early Wednesday. And so far, he's gotten Idan Alexander home. He's working on peace deals, trade deals, hostage deals, and back here at home, lowest inflation in 4 years, high wage growth, real wage growth, and a middle-class tax deal in the offing. And Dana and Bill, I think it's incredibly important to see the way President Trump is approaching diplomacy this early in his administration. He wants part of his legacy to be this foreign and domestic investment in the U.S., onshoring more of our manufacturing and the like, but he also wants it to be truly transformative around the globe, that we can bring peace through strength in different areas. Look at what Assad did. I just want to talk about Syria for one quick second. I was there in the first term when President Trump was watching Assad gas these babies. He saw that and he was so personally offended. He retaliated not once but twice against that Syrian president who just a few months ago was driven out finally in disgrace. That was a big hit against Putin. Remember, President Trump said Putin is so distracted by this war in Ukraine, this senseless war in Ukraine, that he took his eye off the ball in Syria. So now we have a new reset with China and trade. We have a new reset with Syria. And this is incredibly important. And Dana, since you mentioned something very few are missing, how many American business leaders are in the Gulf states this week? I just want to say that the $1 trillion+ investment that the president is getting out of the Middle East, that succeeds the multi-trillion-dollar investments that he's also realizing here with tech, AI, healthcare companies, and other goods and service companies in this country, all of whom are going to the White House and saying, here's what we want to offer this country because you're back. We believe in dereg, energy dominance, Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and a recalibration of trade.
Kellyanne, that's a lot, but I've got more for you, okay? Because there are a lot of targets when we're talking about Donald Trump. This leader of Syria by the name is Ahmed al-Shara. He's also known as Jalani. He was in Abu Ghraib, a prisoner of the United States military for 5 years, long associated with al-Qaeda in Iraq and then later in Syria, and now he's shaking hands with the president. It's pretty remarkable. On screen, here we go. Here are the issues he's been trying to highlight just in the last 48 hours. The Syria sanctions lifted, Israel-Hamas conflict ongoing, Russia-Ukraine war. Tomorrow, open question in Turkey. We'll see what happens there. Then the Iranian nuclear talks that are undecided at the moment. When you were with him in Trump 1.0, and you look at the schedule and you look at him trying to, move these issues forward, what was important to him when he approached these trips and approached his day and said, we're going to try and gain some traction here and gain some traction over there? How would he decide how to go after that? In other words, was it better to throw more things against the wall to see what sticks ultimately, as opposed to going for one or two items at a time?
Bill and Dana, central to President Trump's candidacies, if not his presidencies, his two interrupted terms, is to trust but verify, as President Reagan said, but also to engage. Instead of just being enraged, try to engage with these different leaders and these different countries across the world. And President Trump is in a good position to do that because he's an outsider to the political system. Listen to his words very carefully yesterday, taking on the nation builders who said they destroyed more nations than they built, taking on the neocons, taking on the so-called, quote, liberal think tanks, nonprofit think tanks, and taking them on to say, all you do is basically push paper and humana our way. We're at least going to try to engage. First U.S. president in 25 years to meet with the leader of Syria. That doesn't mean that we forgive all the sins of the past. Of course not. But we're looking at the Syrian people, and they've suffered so grievously. Very important to this president. Look at what he's doing with hostages and detainees and prisoners. And so, yes, you're right, Bill, that whether it's here at home or abroad, President Trump goes bold and big first. Everybody go read The Art of the Deal. This is not a mystery. It's been going on for decades. Go bold and big first and see what you can accomplish. I actually think it's so smart, instead of having your Secretary of State and your special envoys like Steve Witkoff and Keith Kellogg, instead of having them with you on all these trips, send them to Turkey early to try to get that going. Talk about Iran while you're in Riyadh. Talk about Syria while you're in Riyadh on your way to Qatar. So, and his critics right now, I mean, Bill and Dana, think about it. It comes out in these ridiculous books of absolution. That Biden's aides a year ago were trying to put him in a wheelchair. Our president now is going to the Gulf states, and it's no mistake that President Trump, twice now, his first major trip abroad, excluding things like the Pope's funeral, God rest his soul, was to Riyadh. Why? Because no president does that. They usually go to Mexico or Canada or the UK. That's all fine, but that's how big and bold he wants us to do. Remember, his first trip in 2017, I was there as part of the planning. He went to Riyadh, he went to Israel, and he went to the Vatican. And then I think he went to the G7 or G20. This is important because it's not just I'm different, I'm going to do things, I'm different, I'm going to show everybody. It's that I'm going to do things differently. The worst thing you can ever say to President Trump as a staffer is, no one's ever done that before. They tried it and they failed. We can't do that. He knows he was elected to do things differently and to put the United States of America in a position that we are receiving investments here at home and around the globe, and it's super exciting these days.
Okay, so we'll see what headlines we get today, right, Dana?
Yes, we'll get sure to be many.
The day is young, right? Kellyanne, nice to see you again.
Wednesday morning.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you both. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.